The Raiders made Chip Kelly the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league. Now he's an unemployed offensive coordinator after the Raiders move on from him after another embarrassing loss at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 24th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcast network. We're definitely very proud of that. We're also very proud of the way that this show continues to grow each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So if you catch us wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, thank you. And thank you, Ari, for the great job that you're doing. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can, at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we do have the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. Variety of calls and texts on today's show, as you can imagine. Between the game, the Raiders losing 24-10 to the Cleveland Browns and now have lost 5 in a row, to offensive coordinator Chip Kelly now being out as the OC of the Silver and Black. We'll hear from you in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll kind of get into the game, right? Normally the game is the number one feature and the number one storyline, but after the game is what became the number one storyline when offensive coordinator Chip Kelly was relieved of his duties. So we'll kind of focus in on the game, talk about how that unfolded and what led to Chip Kelly getting fired. We'll do that in segment number 2. Segment number 1, it's all about the news and notes, which is all about offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks apps today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So as you can imagine, the game took place at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday. Went to the Raiders locker room following the game, got back to the house, got to Studio Q, starting to put together a bunch of information for the podcast to get ready to knock it out and do a really good show and tell you everything about the game. And I was going to talk about accountability. It's funny, I was going to talk about accountability and who was going to be accountable for what's going on with the Raiders and the performance that they put in on Sunday. And then not too long after the game and after I got to Studio Q, I see the tweet from Adam Schefter. Sources, Chip Kelly is out as the Raiders offensive coordinator. Raiders traded for Geno Smith, drafted Ashton Jeanty in the first round, had Brock Bowers returning, and their offense has struggled this season. Then we saw the official statement from head coach Pete Carroll and the Raiders. I spoke with Chip Kelly earlier this evening, informed him of his release as offensive coordinator of the Raiders. I'd like to thank Chip for his service and wish him all the best in the future. The thing about that, Pete Carroll, in his 14 seasons as a Seahawks head football coach, never fired a coordinator during the season. The Raiders have now fired 2 coordinators in a 17-day span. That's actually a little nugget dropped from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network. How wild is that? Never had to fire a coordinator in season, and now he's had to fire 2 in 17 days because of the Raiders and the performance that they put together. And when you're 2-9 overall, these kind of things will happen. The thing is, the offense was so bad on Sunday, and it's been bad, right? And I think that we all can agree there's been a disconnect between Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly for a while. We've been talking about it on this show. I've been talking about it on Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920. I've been talking about it on ESPN on Game Night. Anytime I get a chance to talk about the Raiders and people ask me what's going wrong, I always point to the disconnect between the head coach and the offensive coordinator. And I just didn't know, well, you know, who was calling the shots, who's in charge, right? Who's doing what? It just seemed like the left hand and the right hand have not been on the same page all season long. I don't think any of us thought that this offense is what we expected to see from a Pete Carroll-led team, especially when they go and draft Ashton Jeanty, number 6 overall. It just hasn't been that. Now, I did know that the offense was going to be a little different because Chip Kelly, who I believed was going to be the strength of the team, being able to be creative as offensive mind, was going to take Pete Carroll's offense and his philosophies and take it to the next level. Obviously, that didn't happen. They actually got worse than they were a year ago, right? They were scoring 18 points per game. The Raiders came into Sunday's game against the Browns, ranked 31st in offense and averaging about 15 points per game. So I didn't think there was a way that the offense could get worse. It did. And on top of that, they're not developing any young guys. They've traded Jacoby Myers away. Geno Smith looks like who wants him back next year, right? I mean, just like a complete mess. Ashton Genty looks like a bust, even though he's not, but he looks like it because the offensive line can't block. And so he hasn't really had an opportunity to have a breakout game. So everyone's talking about that was a terrible pick. And regardless if it was or not, I mean, I think he's going to be a hell of a player, but he hasn't had an opportunity to even show it yet. So there's been so much that's gone wrong with this Raiders offense. But again, I go back to the question, is it the offensive line? Is it the offense? Is it a combination of the two? We know the offensive line is terrible. We saw what happened on Sunday against the Browns. 10 sacks they gave up. They've given up 20 sacks over the last 3 games. Now, I'll say all of it's not on the offensive line. Some of it's on Geno Smith. Some of it's, there's reasons for that. I'm not going to just say the offensive line is the reason why all 20 sacks has happened in the last 3 games, but it hasn't been good. And you just, and then you get compromised when you lose a Colton Miller and a JPJ. So what was already not a good offensive line has gotten even worse. But I just don't know how you properly evaluate the offense based off of the lack of having protection. And so after the game, while we're standing there waiting to get into the locker room, I'm talking to the other media members. It's like someone's got to be held accountable, but who do you put the blame on? And does Pete Carroll have the stones to move on from his son, who's the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, and Brendan Carroll? So it feels like Tom McMahon was fall guy number 1. Chip Kelly, obviously fall guy number 2. And again, for good reason, the offense wasn't very good, and he's getting paid a whole lot of money to make this offense look really good. But at some point, is it gonna be, all right, well, what about the offensive line coach? Is Pete Carroll going to be able to move on from Brendan Carroll? Or are they going to say, well, you know what, the offensive line don't really have the players to get it done? And if they say they don't have the players to get it done and they need to go and reinvest in the offensive line in the offseason, they're not wrong, but they should have known this already, right? I keep referencing going back to the scouting combine in Indianapolis when John Spytek and Pete Carroll told us that they liked the offensive line they saw last year and thought with a little bit better coaching, they were going to be able to coach it up and take it to the next level. Obviously, that has not happened. So, again, I don't think anyone is upset that Chip Kelly got fired. I don't think anyone thinks that it was an unjust move because the offense has been really bad. But I think there's still a lot more questions that need to be answered and accountability that needs to be taken, whether that's offensive line coach. Hell, that could end up being head coach when it's all said and done. I don't think anything else will happen in season unless a couple more games go really, really south, right? If there's a few more embarrassing performances, I could see something happening. For the most part, I don't think anything's going to happen now to the offseason. But then again, Pete Carroll hadn't fired a coordinator in 14 seasons as a Seahawks coach. He's now fired 2 coordinators in a 17-day span. Coming up in segment number 2, take a look at the offense, took a look at how bad that performance was, why it was so embarrassing that ultimately led to the Chip Kelly firing, the straw that broke the camel's back. We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is PrizePicks. The holiday season, it's one of the best times for sports. You got bowl games, basketball games, playoff pushes. It's all happening at the same time. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and even Georgia. PrizePicks adds extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Create a lineup in less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth. You'll enjoy it. They got the early payout feature. It's a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. And the new Stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. Deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing. Right now, download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. As the storyline shifted from the game to following the game and the firing of offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, what was it? How was this the final straw for the powers that be, Pete Carroll and company, to decide to move on from the OC? Well, now the Raiders have lost 5 in a row after dropping their game to the Cleveland Browns 24-10. Going into the game, I was concerned that the storyline was going to be Shedeur Sanders was going to get his first start and go ball out, right? Well, that didn't happen, but he did get the win, right? Again, he got the start, got the win, talked a little trash after the game to CBS Sports saying, this is just with a week of practice. Could you imagine what we could look like if we get a whole offseason? So he's feeling good about himself. And you know what? Why not? Right? You get your first start, you get your first opportunity, and you go out there and win a game. Pops was in the house, so I'm sure he was excited about that. But it wasn't really about Shedeur Sanders and what he did. He 11 for 20, 209 yards, touchdown, interception, sack, 3-yard loss. Right? He didn't really do anything. At first, at the beginning of the game, it was like, man, what's Shedeur doing? He had a couple nice throws, one deep one where he rolled out, escaped trouble, and got it down the field to Isaiah Bond. And that was a nice 52-yard play. It led to a touchdown. That was like really his biggest highlight of the day. But as the game went on and the Browns offense was just as bad as the Raiders offense, it really wasn't even about Shedeur anymore. It was kind of like, all right, well, let's just see when this game is going to mercifully end. Because, again, it was really two bad offenses, and the Browns' defense was just better than the Raiders, right? The Raiders' defense actually kept them in the game for a long time. They did a really good job. Late into the game, it was still only a 2-score game, and if the Raiders could ever start to generate a little bit of offense, they might have had something cooking. But if you just look at it, it's wild. If you look at some of the stats, like you didn't get to see the game, but you want to check the box score, if you look at how many plays the Raiders ran, you probably thought that they won the game. They ran 75 plays. The Browns only ran 48. The Raiders' time of possession, 36 minutes and 26 seconds. Browns, 23 minutes, 34 seconds. The Raiders even won the turnover battle. Like, when does that happen? But it did, 2-1. And then Geno Smith, 30 for 44, 285 yards passing, and a touchdown to Ashton Jeanty late in the game. But he was sacked 10 times for a loss of 77 yards. Ouch. Jeanty carried the rock 17 times for 50 yards, had 8 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. Max Crosby, obviously he's out there dueling with Myles Garrett. Obviously they're not on the field at the same time, but, those are two alphas, two of the best edge rushers in the league. Crosby had 5 tackles for losses and 3 QB hits. He didn't have any sacks, but he did do that. Charles Snowden, shout out to Snow. He had an interception. That was good. Malcolm Kuntz, he had the one lone sack that the Raiders had. But then again, Daniel Carlson missed a 48-yard field goal. Another high snap. Their special teams has not been special. That's why Tom McMahon got fired earlier in the season. And their snapping, if you pay attention to their long snapping, it has been bad. Almost every snap is high. And look, Daniel Carlson is probably going to end up getting moved on from when the season's all said and done. We know he's in, he's in a contract year. He wanted an extension. They're probably going to move on from him when one of the biggest issues that they have is the long snapper. Remember the days of Trent Sieg and all the great snaps he had and how he was the Pro Bowl long snapper? Yeah, Boba Moyer is not that guy. And he's been snapping really bad this year, and that's led to some of the issues that the Raiders have had, both punting and in the field goal kicking. And A.J. Cole had a punt return early in the game, really set the tone for the Browns offensively. Big punt return where he basically had to trip the returner to get him down. It was another 15-yard penalty that led to the Browns' first touchdown. So it was a bad display. Comedy of errors is what I called it on Twitter when I was, live tweeting the game. It was really a bad performance, an embarrassing performance. It's been too many times that I've come into this show following a game and said another embarrassing performance by the Raiders. Not something I expected to talk about under head coach Pete Carroll, but, here they are. Right, the Raiders were getting booed. The offense was getting booed off the field every single time that they had the punt. A.J. Cole was out there way too many times punting the ball, and all the time there's boos, and more boos, and for good reason. They stunk it up. They stunk up the place on Sunday, and so you just knew something was going to happen, and it ultimately led to Chip Kelly getting fired. But, man, I don't know what they do moving forward, right? I'm assuming Greg Olson's going to take over as the interim offensive play caller. All right, he's a guy who's obviously had plenty of experience with that, been with the Raiders organization multiple times. I'm sure he's probably going to take over. I don't even know if it matters. Really, I just don't. I mean, I don't know if they have the personnel to put together a really good offense. I don't know if he's going to all of a sudden, be the savior for the offensive, the game plan. I don't know what Geno Smith looks like. He's still shook. All right, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. The offensive line, as I mentioned, of course, that's something I've been talking about quite a bit. So bad. And they still won't let Caleb Rogers get in the game. I don't know what's going on with that, right? And that's why I say that Brendan Carroll, the offensive line coach, has got to be talked to. Something's got to give. It started out the game, Stone Forsythe, Dylan Parham, Will Putnam, Jordan Meredith, and DJ Glaze. That was a starting offensive line, just like it was on Monday against the Cowboys. Then Putnam was so bad that they benched him. And then Kappa, yeah, that guy, Alex Kappa, who is really a tackle and a guard, comes in and plays center. We asked him after the game, when's the last time he played center? And he said his rookie year in the preseason of his rookie year. So never in a regular game. Alex Kappa's in at the center spot because they had to bench Putnam because he was so bad, right? Even though you told me all year long that Jordan Meredith is the right guy at the center position. That's why JPJ was playing the guard. So when you bench Putnam, you don't want to just put Meredith over at the center spot where he's the best center and maybe put Caleb Rogers in at the guard spot. Or I don't know, even Alex Kappa at the guard spot. But Alex Kappa told us after the game he had been practicing the center spot. He had been working on it. So obviously it's something that they saw in practice or they started working on in practice, which again makes me scratch my head. What's going on with all this shuffling around? So then Meredith gets injured in the game. Caleb Rogers is literally on the field doing his backdrop, right? His back steps, right? His shuffling. He's doing all that, trying to warm up like he's going to get into the game. And right when it looks like he's about to run onto the field and get into the lineup, all of a sudden here comes Putnam. He's back. It's like, wait, what? The guy that you benched, you're taking off the bench because you don't want to put Caleb Rogers in? Like, I don't know what's going on. As bad as the Browns offense was on Sunday, at least they're trying to develop a young quarterback. They've seen Dylan Gabriel. Now they're seeing Shedeur Sanders. Kevin Stefanski after the game did not commit to Shedeur next week, right? So he could be out. Dylan Gabriel could be back in the starting lineup. Who knows? But at least Browns fans got to see some youth, some guys that, okay, is this guy the guy or not? The Raiders don't even have that. We know Geno Smith's not the guy. We know that, right? So there's and I don't think that they have their franchise quarterback on the roster anyway, but you're not seeing anything from Caleb Rogers. You're hardly seeing anything from Jack Besh. I saw him on the field like 2 or 3 snaps. I don't know his exact snap count. I'll get it, but it couldn't have been many. Dante Thornton had 1 catch, and then they went away from him, right? I mean, so it's like you're not winning, you're looking bad, and you're not developing anybody at the same time, or at least seeing what they have. Like nothing, no, the rhyme and reason is not making any kind of sense. We did the show last week, make sense of what doesn't make sense. All this continues to not make sense. It really does. I don't know what the big issues are. And I know that they say, well, Caleb Rogers, the report was out, and I say report in air quotes. Oh, Caleb Rogers looks so bad in practice, he couldn't get the basics. I don't buy that. If I'm at the barbershop, I'm ringing the bell on that, right? And that's something that we do in the barbershop whenever someone says something that's just out of line and is like that's false or just stupid, right? Dumb idea, BS, whatever you want to call it, ring the bell on them. That's what we say. That's what I'm saying when that report came out about Caleb Rogers. This is a guy that is he was like a super senior at Texas Tech, right? He has so much experience. You made him a 3rd-round pick, and you're telling me that he wasn't even good enough to dress on Monday against the Cowboys, and he couldn't even go in for a couple reps on Sunday against the Browns when Meredith goes down? Like, what is really going on? And he was hot. Man, you can see him walking up and down the sideline. He was hotter than fish grease. But as soon as Genty got in the end zone, guess who was the biggest cheerleader for him? Out there supporting him. I mean, this dude, you could tell that he's all in on the team, but it just seems like for some reason the team's not all in on him. So just one error after another error after another error after another error led to the Raiders' 24-10 loss, and ultimately offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, he gets fired after the game. What moves are going to happen next? I don't know. What's on your mind? What are you thinking about not only the firing of Chip Kelly, but also the Raiders' performance that drops on the 2-9 on the season? We'll hear from you as we close out the show. 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is Gametime. The NFL season, man, it feels like it just started, but it's more than halfway through, right? Week 12 is getting wrapped up today. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices, jumping at checkout, it can become frustrating. That's why you got to use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, it's easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you actually pay. The app, it makes it super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. They've got the zone deals, too. What are zone deals? Pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that you'll buy tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, promo code is LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. I do want to remind you and thank you again for making the Locked On Raiders podcast your first listen of the day. And shout out to all the Raider Nation that I got to meet, shake hands with, talk a little Raider ball with at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday. It's always one of the my favorite parts of the day, and probably is one of your favorite parts of the day as well. Not because of me, but because it's still the beginning of the game or before the game when everything is still all good. And then the game happens, and then it's not. Just like DJ Raider, I actually ran into him on Sunday. He texted in and said, Q, DJ Raider from Arizona, exactly what we discussed pregame today. Chip is out, which most likely means Pete's back for at least one more season, which I'm good with. Better late than never. Locked on for life. Just win, baby. That's DJ Raider in Arizona. Thanks for the text. It was great chopping it up with you, and that is something that we talked about. But I'll say this. I don't think that this staff could come back the way it's constructed even without Chip Kelly, right? If Pete Carroll's going to come back, something's got to happen with that offensive line. And his son could be the assistant offensive line coach, but you're going to need to get someone in there that's got some skins on the wall, someone that knows what they're doing. Maybe that's Joe Philbin. I don't know, but I think he's going to have to make some tough decisions. I don't think that the shuffling of coaches and the removing of coaches from their job, I don't think that that's done. I just think it's done for right now. I think that I do think that there's still going to be some more, guys that don't come back. I just don't. I think there's too much inconsistencies, too much disconnect with this staff, the way that it's constructed. And I don't know where that is. It very easily could be Pete Carroll coming back next year. But that he might have to make the decision on his son, Brennan, and he might not want to make that. So I don't know, but it is, part of the conversation that we had talking about Chip Kelly being out. So thanks so much for that text, and it was great to see you. Up next, got a call from Joe in KC. He's calling to talk about the Raiders. What they had is what they needed, and they let it get away. Here's Joe in KC.
Joe. What up, Q? It's your boy Joe in KC. Man, I'm going to keep saying this. We had what we needed. We had the coach that we needed in AP. AP would have made sure that we got a quarterback. He understood what was needed. And he would have made sure that we got a quality young quarterback. Like he said in the show, there's no way that Shedeur would have lasted to the 5th round if he was the head coach. If we would have kept Champ Kelly, I guarantee that we're not in this situation. If we don't bring in Pete Carroll, our defense does not look like this. It's not so simple and basic. Our pass rush will be something. It didn't look like this. Man, we set ourselves back 2 years by bringing this guy in. Regardless if we keep him or not, we have set ourselves back 2 years. I am going to say this every single week. Hey man, pull the plug on it. I know we're tired of paying coaches. I know we didn't did it, but it don't make sense to have the worst of all the decisions and then say, no, we're going to keep it because we can't keep doing this. It's disgusting, man. It's disgusting. I'm out, man.
Joe, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you, my man. And look, I understand where you're coming from, but it's so hard to do the woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And just say, well, had the right guy in AP. And everyone knows I was an AP guy. Right, I didn't think that the Raiders should move on from him. Again, I've been as a matter of fact, when it comes to consistency, but he wasn't getting better as the head coach. So I understand why they made the move, but I did like his approach. He was really good at the rah-rah, getting the team fired up, but you just didn't see him continue to develop as a head coach. And he goes on CBS Sports and says, if I was the head coach, I would have drafted Shedeur. Well, it's easy to say when you're not the head coach. Right. I mean, there's so many things that I could say that I would have done in other previous jobs, like places that I've been. Oh, this is what I would have done. Oh, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say that. Right. Or when we talk about play calls. Right. Oh, this is what I would have done. Yeah, it's easy to say that from the couch. I don't necessarily know. We don't know even how much control he would have had on personnel being drafted. Right. Because if AP's still the coach, Tom Telesco's probably still the GM. And who knows if he would have wanted to draft Shedeur or when he would have wanted to draft him. So it's easy, like I said, for AP, and I'm not slighting him because I like him, but it was as soon as I heard him say that, and I talked to a lot of people at Allegiant on Sunday, I said, you hear what Antonio Pierce said? That's just going to add fuel to the fire because it's going to get people to think, see, we could have had Shedeur. And honestly, it's not like Shedeur balled out. That's the other thing. And I was a fan of his too. I thought the Raiders should go draft him, but it's not like he just balled out on Sunday. Now he can continue to grow. Let's see if the Browns let him get another start. That's something to pay attention to for sure. But thanks so much for that call. I appreciate you. Up next, got a text from TM in Vegas. TM from Vegas, bad loss, total rebuild. Anyways, couple of questions. But first, did you happen to read Cliff Avrill's article in The Athletic? He writes difference between playing for Carroll versus the Lions. He loved playing for Pete. Coaches seem to tell you how they feel about young players by their place on the depth chart and playing time. None of us get to see full practices, but if a player is bad at practice, do you think they should get playing time just because they're young? I'm talking mostly about Caleb Rogers. He must not be showing anything in practice, or I'd assume he'd get playing time with Coach Carroll's compete philosophy. Have you heard anything about certain rookies' practice habits? Just curious. Finally, you're friends with the great Lincoln Kennedy. Does he think that Brendan Carroll's doing a bad job at coaching the offensive line, or is it a lack of talent and cohesion, or both? Wish I could ask in the squad show, but can't listen to it live. I like to text because your pro reading of my text is much better than my mumbled ramblings on the voice line would be. Go Raiders. That's TM in Vegas. Thanks for the text. Appreciate you. We do have the squad show today. I'll ask Lincoln Kennedy what he thinks about Brendan Carroll and the job he's doing. And again, when you give it 10 sacks and you give it 20 sacks in the last 3 games, there's going to be a lot of attention on the offensive line coach and obviously the players as well. I think it's a combination of the two. Not to mention Colton Miller and JPJ are both out, so that doesn't help either. I don't think that Caleb Rogers is that bad at practice. I really don't. I mean, that doesn't give any reason to why Jack Besh isn't playing. I know he practices hard. I know that for a matter of fact. And everything that we hear about him is great. So why does he only get 9 snaps like he did against the Cowboys, or a handful of snaps like he did on Sunday against the Browns? And don't tell me personnel, because Tyler Lockett's out there getting a ton of snaps. You know what I mean? And at this stage of the game, again, getting some live reps to at least know what you have. How do you know what you have in a second-round pick wide receiver if he doesn't get some burn? Right? Dante Thornton got 1 catch, and then they went away from him. Never really to be seen again. So I believe some of the practice, and they've got to earn their time, but I'm not believing it all. I'm not. I mean, it seems like these reports are coming out about practice all of a sudden when this team is struggling. It almost seems like, oh, this is the out. Okay, the team is playing bad. They're on a 5-game losing streak. The offense stinks. The offensive line stinks. Everyone's upset because Caleb Rogers isn't playing. Oh, well, he stinks at practice. It just kind of feels like that's what's going on. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from the 860. He's calling to talk about the embarrassing loss to the Browns and what he thinks this performance was. Here he is. Well, I don't know the name. It's a call from the 860.
Q, Raider Nation. What's going on? Another embarrassing loss. It just keeps getting worse and worse. This is fireable to me. I know there's rumors already, but this is fireable. Losing like that to a team who hasn't won a game, starting quarterback hasn't won a game since 1995. I wasn't even born then. Okay, I was born in 2000. I don't even know. They were saying the guy's name. Didn't even know who the hell he was. Okay. And Shedeur played okay. Okay, he didn't play horrible, but he played okay, and they got the win. They ran the ball down our face, and we allowed 10 sacks. Okay, not just Myles Garrett. He wasn't the only one that ate. It was everyone. It's embarrassing. This team is the worst team I think I've seen in my life. Now, like I said, I'm born in 2000, so I'm 25 years old, and so probably I can, think of teams like as far back as like 2010. Okay, recollecting wise, and this is probably the worst team I think I've ever seen. Okay? It's horrible. This is a fireable offense. The entire coaching staff I've called before, drafting Genty was the biggest mistake it's ridiculous. And that had to be Pete Carroll because he thought this team was ready to win now, which I don't know why. A squirrel could have told you it wasn't, but it is what it is. We wasted an offseason. And now, guess what? We're going to be going into a new coaching, hiring, season, looking for another coach. And we'll probably mess it up then, too, just like we have every single time. No one should have faith in this team, okay? People could be like, oh, I want to lose because I want a better draft pick. Why? Based off what? The team will mess it up anyway. I don't have to go through all the picks. Everyone knows the history. Okay, this team is embarrassing. Okay, and Geno Smith, I saw a video of, I don't know if he was flipping off our fans or what, but the Raiders fans were giving it to him, and he wasn't the reason that we lost it today, but flipping off the fans, guess what? We're pissed off, dude. It's been 25 years, okay? It's been my entire life since we've been good, okay? I've never seen a playoff win. People are sick and tired, and like I said, people should be boycotting this team until this team is good. Don't show up at Allegiant Stadium. Let it be in a home game for the away fans. A tourist destination, which it already is. Okay? It's pathetic. This team needs to change, and it's got to be something like that for it to change. Or else, don't get your hopes up. It'll never get better. Never.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. Clearly, you can hear the frustration in your voice. I'm not sure why a squirrel caught a stray, though. That was cold game, man. Why the squirrel got to catch a stray? But for real, it was all bad. It was very embarrassing. 10 sacks should not happen. Fireable is exactly what it is. Fireable is exactly what happened. Fireable offense. I will say, I don't think it stops just with offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. I think that there's a lot of blame to go around, just like there was a lot of blame to go around when Tom McMahon got fired as well. So, and I'm pretty sure that you're on the same page with that as well. But thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from Peter in Winnipeg. Hey, Q, it's Peter from Winnipeg. Well, this might be the most embarrassing loss the team has had in recent memory. It'd be nice to see the team play all the young kids and see what we have going forward. I'm not sure if firing Chip Kelly will make any difference. The O-line is Swiss cheese. For some reason, I still have a bit of faith that this team could be decent next year with some improvement up front. Oh, well, hopefully we can get into the top 3 and get another blue chip prospect. Thanks for all the work that you do, Q. You've been one of my bright spots for the Raiders this season. That's Peter in Winnipeg. Thanks for the text. Thanks for the compliment as well. And that's the other question, right? Is just the firing of Chip Kelly, does that remedy everything? I don't think so, right? I did a hit on ESPN radio immediately after Chip Kelly got fired, and they said, is this the turnaround? Is this the beginning to like a 6-game winning streak? And I said, I doubt it, because the guys up front can't block, right? They might get a little bit of a bump, a little bit of a little extra boost in whatever the play calling is, just a change of voice and thoughts on what they're doing. But, I mean, until you can block somebody, how are you going to expect Geno Smith to throw the ball around the yard? How are you expecting Ashton Genty to run around the yard? Like, it's going to be very tough sledding the rest of the way, and the schedule only gets tougher. The Raiders might not have another win on the schedule as far as I'm concerned. They might end up with a 2-15 season. I hope not, but they very well could. And I know some are hoping that because of the draft spot. But as we know with the Raiders, draft spots don't necessarily mean success with the silver and black. But thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to close out the show again. We'll talk to head coach Pete Carroll a little bit later on this morning. So hopefully he'll have some answers about this team moving forward, his expectations, the interim offensive coordinator, and more, everything that led to Chip Kelly getting fired. And maybe we'll get a little bit of clarity of what's going on with this team. But until tomorrow, Red Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.